Hi, well, hello everyone. Welcome to Badger Talks Live, a new online version of our face-to-face Badger Talks program, which features over 350 current and former UW faculty and staff who give talks around the state of Wisconsin. I'm Beth Olson. I'm the Associate Professor in Nutritional Sciences, and I'm excited to be presenting this session with my program on nutrition to support maximum wellness during challenging times. I'll be presenting for about 30 minutes. Feel free to post your questions throughout the session, but I won't respond to them until the end of my talk. And Fran, my screen is not advancing. So I'm going to get started until we figure out how to advance the screen and talk a little bit about what we need to do. There we go. There's the first one. About nutrition and preventing infection in this time where we're all very concerned with becoming ill. And so here's a question. Is there a magic bullet? And I think probably most folks know what my answer was going to be, which is no, there's no magic bullet. But is there something we can do? And perhaps you all knew this one as well. There is something we can do. So this is a topic overview for today. Because our time is very brief, I'm not going to cover anything in great depth. I just want to give you some ideas to get started on your nutrition. And I'll begin with a little bit of background on nutrition and immunity, then talk about nutrients, foods, and dietary patterns, and then just have a few tips of what we can do right away today. So there are things with our immune system that we can't control. For instance, we have a certain genetic background that makes up how we respond to things. That's at this point probably beyond our control. In some ways, our environment might be out of our control. What's the kind of things that we're breathing in, things like pollution, and our exposure to just other things in life. But there are some things that we can control, or maybe can control at times, and we often call these lifestyle. So the lifestyle elements that we can control. For our immune system, this includes physical activity, alcohol and smoking, sleep, stress. Now I know that stress is something that today we probably think we can't control. Controlling that stress or getting rid of it, it's how we're coping with it. But then there's also nutrition. And when does this start? So for many of us, beyond our control a bit, nutrition starts when our mother was pregnant with us. But for us and what we're eating, nutrition starts when we're children. And that's why I have these pictures up here. In most of my life, what I do my work with is how families can help their babies eat healthier. So one of the first places our immune system is affected by our nutrition is if we're breastfed. Breastfeeding helps boost the immune system in many, many ways, is very important to stopping infection and other diseases in infants, newborns and infants. But also just to tell you a little bit of interesting information from infant feeding is part of our immune system can go out of control and cause allergies. We react to things we shouldn't be reacting to. And breastfeeding seems to help with this, but so does introducing most of the foods that we eat in the first year of life to our infants. For many years, we told people don't give them foods that cause allergies because the baby might develop allergies. And now we know in that first year, the baby's immune system through its gut is still developing, and that's when the gut needs to see the kind of foods that it's going to be eating throughout its life. So this is my busiest slide, and I just wanted to make sure people knew I wasn't going to cover this in all kinds of detail. Really, the purpose of this slide is to show you that there are many nutrients, so vitamins, minerals, other things that we require to be healthy that are involved in immunity. The first vitamins, vitamin D, E, and A, are fat-soluble vitamins. They're important to helping immune cell activity. They're antioxidants. Vitamin A is important for tissue integrity, like keeping our skin and the lining of our GI tract well. That helps us fight off things that are coming in from the outside. And then many B vitamins. Also, minerals, zinc and copper. Iron is important for cells to divide, which we need when we're mounting an immune response. Selenium is part of our immune proteins. Protein, if we get some damage in our body, we need protein to repair it. Also, the fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6. A lot of you have probably heard about the omega-3 fatty acid fish oils to help us decrease inflammation, stop chronic disease, which is a part of our immune system response. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about fiber because that's a favorite topic of mine in a next slide or two. But one of the reasons for having up my pictures again is to say this is all about a balancing act. So you see there's lots of vitamins, lots of minerals, and in fact, almost all the nutrients we take in are important in mounting a good immune response. And that's why when people struggle with their nutrition, it's often general malnutrition that's going to cause a problem. If we eat healthy, then our immune response should be able to respond well. The other point I want to make is that a lot of the vitamins act together. And so if you take a single supplement of one, it doesn't have the right balance with the others to act. Sometimes nutrients, vitamins, minerals interact. So if you take a high dose of one, it might interfere with the other. And so the best response that we can have is probably from a good overall healthy diet and not from taking high doses of single supplements, which you can often see promoted online. So as you might guess, what I think is most important is whole, intact foods, as whole as we can make them. There's certainly a place for processed foods. They're shelf stable. That's very important today. But having lots of whole foods, particularly those high in fiber. So fruits and vegetables, they're on the left, our whole grains and our beans and legumes on the right, as well as our protein foods down on the lower right. And you can see I've included fish there. Now, I mentioned dietary fiber as one of the nutrients we need, and that's high in those foods that I just showed. So I just want to make a couple points about dietary fiber. However, on the left are the recommendations for men and women. They're higher for men, generally related to their higher body weights. And on the right, you can see the population groups that we now have in our current fiber intakes. We are pretty far away from what we need. Now, these numbers that I have on the right are about 10 years old, but I've been working with dietary fiber in that area for several decades, and I can tell you they have not moved much over the years. We simply just don't eat enough whole foods that are high in fiber. So if you remember nothing else, lots of fiber, lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, lots of whole grains. But the other thing I want to talk about is dietary pattern. So if I back up just a little bit to nutrients, we have looked at individual nutrients and what they do for various functions in our body. And where we have had excellent evidence, we think, from looking at populations over time, looking at the mechanism, looking at animal models, we've isolated one nutrient, fed it to a group, and looked for an outcome over time, and it has almost always failed. This goes back to our nutrients probably interact with each other and operate as a group. And what we see most often is helpful for people, for the immune response, but also for other things, is the overall healthy dietary pattern. So that's defined as the quantity, variety, or combination of different foods and beverages in a diet. And I've listed here 3 dietary patterns, which you can look up. The healthy U.S. eating pattern, which is how we eat most often in the U.S., but modified to be more healthful and follow healthy and follow the U.S. dietary guidelines, as well as the Mediterranean diet. This is one that you probably have heard a bit about. It has a bit more fish, olive oil, nuts, legumes, avocados, lots of healthy fats. That's another high quality, healthy dietary pattern. And then the DASH diet, we don't hear about that as much anymore, but years ago they showed that with very careful dietary intervention, again, still lots of whole foods, low sodium, high potassium, people could actually sometimes control their blood pressure without any need for medication. But people might be saying, what can I do with the here and now? And I'm just thinking we skipped a slide. And so I don't think that I can go backwards on the slide. So I am going to go ahead and cover the topic because I'm going to have enough time. So one of the topics that I mentioned, and I'm sorry you can't see the slide right now, that was important as a nutrient I felt and as a food is those that are high in fiber. And the reason I bring this up is there's a lot of interest in the microbiome these days, which is important to the immune system, but also people have been linking it to many other chronic diseases, that we have a good microbiome. And the microbiome is really all those little microbes that live on our body, but most of them live in our gut, particularly bacteria, but there are other organisms as well, and it can be trillions of organisms. It's very individual to each of us, depending on the environment we live in and what kind of foods we eat. But one of the roles of fiber is to support that microbiome. So when we consume fiber, it can't be digested by us, but it can be digested by the bacteria in our gut. This provides energy for those bacteria to continue to grow, but they also produce compounds that are helpful for health. Short chain fatty acids is one. Some vitamins that we absorb, they seem to help our gut integrity and many other functions. And our gut is one of our major lines of defense against invaders. When you think about it, it's things go into our body on that route, and some of them may be harmful. And those microbiomes, that microbiome really helps us keep that gut healthy so that we are less likely to get sick. We can make that microbiome healthier by eating lots of fiber, including whole foods. Prebiotics, those are things that actually feed the bacteria as well, things like yogurt that you might have seen advertised on TV by Jamie Lee Curtis. And we can disrupt it by having dietary changes, by sometimes antibiotics will upset our microbiome and more. And so the point of that was just to say a healthy immune system may, in fact, start with what we eat in terms of keeping our gut healthy. But also all of those, once we have a healthy gut, we can digest and absorb our food well, and all of those nutrients then are involved inside our body and the ability for us to mount an immune response. So again, sorry we missed that slide, but I just wanted to make sure because fiber is a particular favorite topic of mine, and I like to make sure to tell people to always eat whole foods with plenty of fiber. So now, what's the here and now? Because a lot of what I'm telling you is stuff that we say to people every day. We say, eat healthy, eat lots of fruits and vegetables, get calcium from dairy or another source, get your protein. But since that's not that different, what are we telling people now? First, I can't say enough, wash your hands. Before you eat, before you handle food, before you put away food, before you prepare it for your family. This is really key to the transmission of the virus, is us having our hands up near our face and transmitting it into our respiratory system. So make sure you're always washing your hands. So what's the other thing we can do? We can plan for meals and snacks. So a lot of us are home, including me today, in a way that we haven't been before. And what's right there down the hall, the kitchen, the snacks, it can be really tempting to be snacking all day if we haven't been here before. And so one of the things we can do is to plan for those meals and snacks. Think about, what am I going to have for each of the meals? What am I going to make for my family? What are my children going to have? And plan in healthy snacks. So when you are tempted, maybe it's whole fruit or baby carrots with ranch dip, anything like that. I put in the list on the right just to provide a little humor today. That was a grocery list left out by one of my children when he was quite young, when I said, make sure to leave me a list of what you want me to get at the grocery store. I think he always felt if you put a lot of treats on there, I might pick one, and usually I did get him one. So again, planning your meals and snacks, because we're trying to minimize our trips to the grocery store, writing a list of everything you need, perhaps looking up some old family recipes that you haven't cooked in a while if you have time to cook. If not, that's okay. You can get things that are more convenient at the store right now, but making sure then you can get all the ingredients that you need to make your recipes. As far as cooking goes, then if you have all the ingredients you need, you might involve someone else in your family or who lives with you in your home if you can. So for kids, if we're looking for activities for them to do while they're out of school, this may be a good time to involve them. Have them measure with measuring cups, great way to learn about fractions, have them read the recipes, have them pick out something that you haven't had in a while that you could have access to at the store and get, and then buy that, and then have them help you make it. And as always, make sure they also wash their hands before being involved with cooking. And then enjoying meals with others. We don't want this to go away, and we've heard a lot about this, about being isolated. So perhaps you get online with someone in your family that's not in your home, and you all eat together. You make the same thing, or you make different things, and then you meet up and you eat. But if you do have people in your home with you, maybe this is a good time to teach your children how to set the table, sit down to eat, turn off the TV for a little while so you aren't seeing so much news while you're eating, and relax and talk to each other and learn something. Maybe plan your next vacation when this is all over, or at least better, or talk about a vacation that you had in the past. Just anything to engage with your family and to not be alone while you're eating. And then, even though I've been talking all about having an overall healthy diet, lots of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, dairy, all that good stuff, I don't think this is a time we need to give up treats. Eating is and preparing food and sharing it is a very social time for all of us. So perhaps it's a time, again, if you have the time, if you have the ability to get things at the store, to get some treats. Say, get ingredients to make cookies that you haven't made in a long time. Maybe another idea is to make popcorn and sit down at movie night and have popcorn, just like you might have if you were going out to the theater. Maybe it's a time to once a week, do a special dinner. Maybe take turns having your children help you prepare a special dinner, but then set the table, put some candles out, some special napkins, do something to make your eating fun and not just a chore or just for your health, just for your physical health. Make it for your mental health as well. Food is very social, and it's a time for us, it's very comforting, and so there's no reason for us not to take advantage of that. And although we're trying to eat healthy, also take a little time to enjoy each other and enjoy your food. So I just wanted to end with acknowledging that there are many people in our community that don't have access to food. If you don't, or you know someone that doesn't, they can call 211. They can also go to the website that I've listed. It's important for people who are struggling not to be left out. I know you've all probably seen on TV the lines at food banks. So if you know of anybody that needs some help, please have them call. There are still school lunches being made available, breakfast and lunches to children. There are still meals for seniors being made available. The food banks are making accommodations. So if you know of anybody that needs help, please let them know. So time for questions. I just wanted to note at the bottom 2 very broad general resources from the US government. The dietary guidelines is quite lengthy, but if you like to read about nutrition, it's, in my opinion, a good read. And then it's Put into Practice and Choose My Plate, which tells you how to put together healthy meals. There's lots of recipes in those as well. And so I think I would go there and take a look for new recipes. A lot of pantry friendly recipes. So if you have foods, in your pantry, if you have foods in your freezer that you want to use, it would give you ideas. If you are buying pantry foods, I might just add, and Choose My Plate would have some information to help you. Take a look at the label on the side label, the nutrition facts label, and try to choose as healthy as you can. But frozen and canned fruits and vegetables are generally just as healthy as fresh. So go there and find some good recipes to use. So I see it looks like we've got a question. Do I have a brand of multivitamin you recommend? No, I don't. I think if you're concerned that you aren't getting enough nutrients from your food, a multivitamin, multi-mineral supplement is one of the best ways to go. It's likely to have a balance of nutrients and not to have any one of them in a very high amount. So I think any of the brand names certainly are fine. I also think a lot of the generic brands would be fine too and less expensive. One of the things you want to look for is, I think it's called USP. It's a certification that they get that shows that those nutrients can be digested and are available to you. If you go to other places and get single supplements, it isn't always clear that that kind of thing is available to you, to your body, and so you might be spending money unnecessarily. So I would be sure to check that is something that you're watching for. Do you recommend a fiber supplement, someone has asked, and is it possible to eat too much fiber? So I think one of the things that can happen with fiber is if you don't normally eat much fiber and you suddenly increase your fiber, you may find that a little uncomfortable for a bit. Remember, they feed bacteria in our gut. So if you don't eat a lot of fiber and you suddenly eat more, you're going to encourage more bacteria, perhaps some different, although healthy varieties of bacteria. And as many people know, for instance, eating beans, that can cause some GI discomfort, can cause some gas. You generally will adapt to that over time. I would say it's pretty hard from foods to eat too much fiber. You would really, really have to have a high fiber diet. One of the benefits that comes with that is generally those diets are also high in water. They tend to be more filling. People who have lost weight and keep it off generally have a pretty high fiber diet because that's very filling. So it's hard to overeat that. It is probably possible to get too much fiber from a supplement. So I think that a common supplement people find easy to use is psyllium. It's been used as a fiber supplement for years. Comes in a lot of varieties. A lot of people use it for regularity in particular. But I also think you could use things like oat bran or oatmeal, some high fiber cereals to stir into yogurt. It'd be my preference to do something like that because I think you're going to get other nutrients, if you can, with it. And I think you will bring other nutrients, and it'll also put it in more of a food form. It'll be less concentrated. It'll be distributed within your food and throughout your diet, which I think is the best way to go. So I'd look for high fiber foods. You can get it on these websites. And then add those into your diet. Add nuts into your salad, that kind of thing. Another question is food the best way to get omega-3s, or are supplements the way to go? So given all these supplement questions, I think what I would say in general is if you're interested in taking supplements, try to talk to your healthcare provider first. They're going to be able to answer individual supplement questions. There are supplements that interact with medications. You want to be careful that you're not causing a problem there. There are supplements that have other side effects that may be of more concern to you because of a medical condition, so I would be careful with that. I think the best evidence for health benefits related to the fatty acids in fish is from fish itself. And so I've spoken to some people who do research in the area. It's not my particular area of research, but they have all said, like other studies, there's been some problems trying to supplement people with omega-3s and get the results that they had hoped for. Again, it may be a factor of the other things that are in the fish. It may be how available they are. It's also about the ratios of all the different fatty acids in the fish. So along with fiber, fish is one thing in the diets of people that we get we're very low compared to dietary recommendations. So I think that that's really a good one. I think we'll have time for one more question, and then I will, looks like it's still coming in. Sorry. Anyway, just finishing up on the fish. That's one area where we find very few people get enough fish. I know that fish can seem to be expensive. You can look at frozen fish, look at fish that's on sale, and just try to get a little more fish in your diet. And so someone asked about recommending eating plant-based foods to boost immunity for COVID. So I want to say first, I don't know that we know there is anything that we can do in terms of our diet that would boost our immunity to a specific disease, not just COVID, but a cold, a flu. Each one has its own immune response that we're going to mount. What we want is an overall healthy response so that everything that's a threat we can respond to. So I would say I don't have a particular diet to recommend outside a healthy diet. I do think that a lot of people don't eat enough fruits and vegetables and whole grains, and certainly increasing those in our diet would be a good thing. But some people, for protein, for their specific tastes, prefer also to include some meat, and I think that's perfectly fine. You want to be careful about saturated fat in your meats. Try to get lean meats. But I think in general, most nutritionists are encouraging people to consider how many plants they eat, whether they eat enough, and whether those are whole foods. So not refined grains as much, but whole grains. So I got the question on pre-washing greens, and this is something I've talked a fair bit to my colleague who works in food safety in the Food Science Department at UW-Madison. And a couple of thoughts on that. One is the biggest concern we have right now is handling things that would be contaminated or breathing in, of course, particles from someone who's infected. And so there isn't any evidence yet that we have passed COVID-19 by food, that someone has eaten food that someone has touched, or the food's been contaminated and they've gotten the disease. And there isn't also, at this point, evidence, I don't believe, that if you ate some of the virus that you would become sick. It's passed through the respiratory system. So what we would recommend right now is people wash in the way that they always have, for instance, their fruits, their vegetables, their greens, with running water, and rinse all of them thoroughly. If people are still concerned, an alternative might be to create a 1-to-1 solution, like 2 cups of vinegar to 2 cups of water, and dip your greens or your fruits and vegetables that you aren't going to peel into that and let it sit for a minute, then take it out and rinse it thoroughly. We do not recommend that you use soap. We do not recommend that you use any kind of cleaner, Lysol, anything like that. You don't want to ingest any of that. So I think rinsing and using the vinegar water and rinsing again, letting things dry, and then again, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. So I think that was the last of the questions that we had right now. And so I wanted to thank you for joining us here on Badger Talks. Let me just close by saying that we thank you, and we want to make sure that you join in for future talks. Please visit badgertalks.wisc.edu, also up on your screen, for the complete schedule of our live talks, and a link to YouTube, where we do hope to post these talks later and have them closed captioned for your benefit. So thank you all for joining in today. It was my pleasure to be here, and we hope you all keep well.